Everything you see, touch, hear, even think, is not made of solid matter as you've been told. The world around you, and even the world within you, is constructed from something far stranger, something most people never see and rarely consider. Beneath atoms, beyond particles, deeper than molecules or neurons, there exists a vast, invisible network. Not wires, not forces, fields. These quantum fields are not science fiction. They're not mystical metaphors. They are the true substrate of reality, the silent blueprints of all that exists. Every single object, every thought, every breath you've ever taken emerged not from matter, but from ripples in invisible fields that stretch across the universe. This is not theory confined to dusty physics journals or blackboards filled with cryptic symbols. It is real. It is now. And it changes everything. Quantum field theory, or QFT, is the most successful scientific framework we've ever built. Powers your phone. It drives the GPS in your car. It explains the stars, the atoms in your skin, and the energy in a lightning bolt. But beyond technology, beyond physics, this framework may hold the key to unlocking human potential, to understanding intuition, to bending probability, to tuning your awareness to levels most people never imagine. Today, you're not just learning about science. You're stepping into the engine room of existence itself. You'll see how quantum fields may be the bridge between consciousness and creation, between thought and outcome, between what you perceive and what you truly are. We're going to walk through 12 powerful revelations, each one peeling back a layer of the illusion we call normal reality, from the energetic hum of empty space to the wild phenomenon of entanglement, from parallel timelines to the possibility that thought itself sculpts reality. Every piece connects to a greater truth. This is not a lesson. It's a recalibration. If you've ever sensed there was more than meets the eye, more than mainstream science was willing to say, more than your physical body could explain, then keep listening, because this is where science meets the unknown, not to dismiss it, but to uncover its structure. And we begin not with something visible, but with what appears to be nothing at all. Space looks silent, still, cold. To the untrained eye, it seems like nothing more than blackness punctuated by stars, a backdrop, a void. But that assumption is deeply, profoundly wrong. What we call empty space is anything but empty. It is alive with energy, alive with motion, and most surprisingly, alive with possibility. At the heart of quantum field theory lies a counterintuitive idea. The vacuum is not the absence of matter or energy. It is the ground state of the fields that make up reality. Even when there are no particles, the fields remain, and they fluctuate constantly. This isn't metaphor. It's measurable. Physicists call it zero-point energy, the residual energy present even in a perfect vacuum. Even if you cooled space down to absolute zero, where all classical motion stops, these quantum fluctuations would still persist. They're built into the architecture of space-time. To understand this, picture a calm lake. Even on the stillest day, the surface is never completely flat. Tiny ripples form and fade, invisible to the eye but present nonetheless. Now imagine that same concept applied to space itself. Fields undulating with energy, endlessly oscillating. These fluctuations have real consequences. In fact, they've been experimentally confirmed. The Casimir effect, for example, demonstrates that two uncharged metal plates placed very close together in a vacuum will attract each other, not because of gravity or magnetism, but because of suppressed quantum fluctuations between them. That pull comes from the energy of the vacuum itself. This tells us something profound. The vacuum has structure. It is not blank. It is not passive. It is not empty. It is creative. In quantum electrodynamics, the electromagnetic field is never at rest. Even when no photons are present, the field is vibrating with potential. And these vibrations can birth particles. A strong enough disturbance to the field, a spark of energy, can turn that potential into form. Matter from emptiness. Energy from the invisible. This leads to one of the most staggering implications in modern science. Particles are not fundamental. They are excitations in fields. A photon is not a thing flying through space. It is a ripple, a quantized bump, in the electromagnetic field. An electron, a vibration in the electron field. Every particle is just a localized expression of a field's energy. This flips classical thinking on its head. The universe isn't built from Lego blocks stacked in space. It's more like a symphony, where different notes, different field excitations, create the song of form and energy. Now take this a step further. If empty space is not empty, but full of quantum potential, and if particles are not solid but energetic blips in an invisible matrix, then everything we call reality is sculpted from something we cannot see. But we might be able to influence it. Zero-point energy isn't just a curiosity, it may be the fabric of creation. The fact that these fields exist everywhere means that the potential for creation is embedded within the very nature of reality. It's not localized. It's not scarce. It is omnipresent. That brings us to a deeper question. If the vacuum hums with infinite energy, why can't we harness it? Many researchers and thinkers have explored this. Some speculate that technologies of the future, or of forgotten civilizations, could one day tap into this endless reservoir. Others argue it's already possible, but we haven't developed the right approach. Either way, the implications are enormous. This also opens the door to reinterpreting metaphysical ideas. Think about spiritual traditions that speak of life force in the air, the ether, the breath of the universe. Perhaps what they were sensing wasn't mystical poetry. It was intuitive recognition of the quantum vacuum, a field so subtle and pervasive, it permeates all things. And because it's everywhere, it connects everything. It doesn't matter where you are on the planet or the galaxy. The fields are present. The zero-point energy is present. Reality isn't stitched together from discrete, disconnected pieces. It is a continuous, unified field expressing itself in infinite ways. The question is not whether you can see it. The question is whether you can start working with it. Think of the vacuum not as a blank screen, but as a responsive surface, one that holds the code of form and energy. A field that doesn't just receive inputs, but responds to intention, attention, and resonance. Not in a metaphorical way, but in a physically measurable one. And that's where it starts to get personal. If you are not separate from these fields, if your thoughts, emotions, and even your biology are disturbances in this energy matrix, then you're not just living in the field. You are part of the field's dynamic expression. Every thought, every emotion, every action you take sends its own ripple, not just chemically or neurologically, but energetically. Quantum fluctuations are not limited to the outer cosmos. They are within you, right now. So the next time someone tells you it's just empty space, you'll know the truth. There is no such thing as nothing. The vacuum is brimming with unseen energy, hidden order, and infinite creative potential. And this is only the beginning. Everything you've ever known has been described in terms of particles. Tiny, indivisible dots of matter zipping through space. Quarks, electrons, neutrons, photons. We've been taught to believe that reality is built from these minute, solid chunks that stack together like cosmic building blocks. But this picture is not only incomplete, it's misleading. At the root of reality, particles are not the source. They are the consequence. Modern physics reveals a deeper framework, one in which particles are not fundamental but emergent. They are the visible patterns of invisible waves, manifestations of deeper, continuous entities known as quantum fields. The universe is filled with these fields, not metaphorically, literally. There's an electron field, a quark field, a Higgs field, and many more. They stretch across all of space, through every atom, every cell, and every galaxy. Each type of particle you've ever heard of is simply a localized excitation in its corresponding field. An electron is not a tiny ball flying through space. It is a ripple in the electron field. A photon is not a packet of light darting from point A to point B. It is a vibration in the electromagnetic field. And when these ripples occur at specific energy levels, they behave like discrete units, what we call particles. This is the foundation of quantum field theory. It replaces the old Newtonian worldview with something far more elegant, yet infinitely stranger. The universe is not made of things. It is made of fluctuating fields, layered upon one another, interacting and resonating in complex ways. Particles are just the visible outcomes when energy in a field becomes concentrated in a particular way. This changes everything. Instead of asking, what is an electron made of? The better question is, what kind of ripple is this in the electron field? The fields are the true actors. The particles are merely their footprints. Now consider this. Fields are not confined. They don't stop at the edge of a planet or a lab. They are everywhere. Even the so-called vacuum of space is filled with them. You are surrounded by them. You are composed of them. Every part of your body, your skin, your thoughts, your heartbeat, is a coordinated orchestra of these field excitations. This suggests that at a fundamental level, there's no hard boundary between you and the rest of reality. Because the fields don't stop where your body ends. They are continuous. They unify everything. Let's take a brief look at the Standard Model, the framework physicists use to understand the basic ingredients of the universe. According to this model, there are 17 known particles. But more importantly, there are fields corresponding to each of them. And it is the interaction of these fields that gives rise to forces, matter, and the complexity we observe. The Higgs field is a prime example. It permeates all of space, and when other particles interact with it, they acquire mass. It's not that mass is a built-in property. It's that mass arises from a field interaction. Something as basic as weight is actually a secondary effect. It's the result of moving through a deeper layer of invisible structure. This is no longer theoretical hand-waving. The Higgs boson, the ripple in the Higgs field, was discovered at CERN in 2012. That discovery confirmed what the theory had long predicted. Fields are not abstract math. They are real, and they shape the world. But why does this matter beyond physics? Because this concept pushes us into new territory. If particles aren't solid units of reality but energetic ripples. If you, too, are a system of ripples in a collection of fields, then everything you experience is a pattern of interaction, not separation, not division. That opens up profound questions about identity, influence, and potential. If reality is based on vibration and interaction, what determines which ripples arise and how? What influences the shape of an event or a moment or a thought? These questions move us closer to the interface between physics and consciousness, between observation and creation. Let's look again at how particles appear in quantum field theory. A particle doesn't just exist. It emerges when energy is injected into a field. That energy could come from a collision in a particle accelerator, or from the natural chaos of the vacuum, or perhaps from processes we don't yet understand. Now extend this idea beyond physics labs. In your own body, energy shifts all the time. Emotional energy, mental focus, biological rhythms. What if those shifts aren't just confined to your internal space? What if they influence the fields themselves, sending signals, creating ripples, altering probabilities? This isn't idle speculation. It reflects an important truth of field-based thinking. Everything affects the field. Nothing exists in isolation. The idea of the individual is not discarded, but it is reframed. You are a node in an ocean of vibrating energy, unique, yet connected. Distinct, but not separate. This reframing has massive implications for how we think about healing, transformation, and influence. If a change in a field leads to a change in what appears as reality, then focusing on particles, on outcomes, may be less effective than learning to work at the level of the field. Influence the vibration, and you influence what arises. There are parallels here to ancient philosophies and metaphysical teachings. Concepts like the ether, prana, or universal energy echo this understanding, even if the language is different. For centuries, mystics and sages have suggested that the world is not made of things, but of frequencies. Now, quantum field theory provides a modern framework to explore those ideas scientifically. Still, it's important to be rigorous. Fields aren't magic. They operate by specific rules, mathematical laws of interaction, symmetry, and conservation. But that doesn't make them less mysterious. If anything, it makes them more awe-inspiring. The most fundamental rule? Fields respond to energy. Introduce energy into a field and you get a ripple. Introduce a coherent, sustained input and you may get a particle, a wave packet, a manifestation. So now consider this. When you focus attention, you generate coherence in your brain's electromagnetic output. When you hold an emotion, you sustain a pattern in your bioelectric field. When you visualize something vividly, you're activating both neural and energetic circuits. These aren't trivial events. They are energetic signatures in the very fields that shape your body, your experience, and your perceived reality. That leads to one of the most important ideas you'll hear in this entire exploration. You are not just reacting to reality. You are participating in its formation. Not metaphorically, energetically, field-wise. The language of reality is not matter. It is frequency, pattern, and interaction across fields. And the more you understand how those fields work, the more you can influence what they produce. We've been taught to look at the world through a lens of objects, separate things doing separate tasks. But this model is giving way to a deeper, more unified understanding. The quantum fields don't care about your labels. They don't recognize the border between your thoughts and your body and your environment and the universe. To the fields, it's all one fluid continuum. Your potential is coded into that continuum, not as a static fact, but as a field dynamic. Understanding this is the first step toward real power. Not control over others, but mastery of interaction with the deeper language of the cosmos. And now that you've glimpsed the foundation, we move forward into the strange relationship between awareness and reality. You look at the world and assume it's already there, existing independently, quietly functioning with or without your attention. A cup remains on a table whether you're watching it or not. A tree falls in a forest, sound or no sound, witness or not. That's the classical view. But quantum physics tells a different story. At the subatomic level, the very act of observation does something strange. It doesn't just reveal what is, it seems to influence what becomes. This phenomenon is not philosophical musing. It's not spiritual symbolism. It's measured, repeated, real. This is known as the observer effect. It reveals a reality where observation and outcome are entangled, where watching changes the watched, and where the boundary between you and the world you perceive becomes blurry, maybe even non-existent. Let's look at the famous double-slit experiment. A beam of electrons is fired at a barrier with two slits. On the other side of the barrier is a detector screen. When no one is measuring which slit the electron passes through, the pattern on the screen reflects interference, like a wave that passed through both slits at once. Not a pattern of particles, a wave pattern. But the moment someone or some device tries to measure which slit the electron actually went through, the interference pattern disappears. The electrons start behaving like particles again, going through one slit or the other, as though the act of measurement collapses the electron's wave-like nature into a definitive position. Why? The electron, prior to measurement, exists in a superposition, a blend of all possible states. But once observed, that blend seems to snap into a single outcome. The wave becomes a point. The potential becomes a fact. Probability turns into experience. This alone is strange enough. But here's what makes it even more intriguing. It's not the equipment itself that causes the shift. It's the interaction, the informational exchange. Whether the observer is human, a sensor, or even a theoretical system capable of acquiring knowledge, it's this entanglement with information that causes the wave function to collapse. What does that mean? It suggests that reality isn't a static backdrop. It's a dynamic unfolding, one in which observation actively shapes the form things take. Conscious attention may play a key role in this transformation. This doesn't mean you can stare at the ground and expect diamonds to appear, but it raises essential questions. Could focused awareness influence quantum probabilities? Could intention affect outcomes on subtle levels? Could consciousness be more than a side effect? Could it be a participant? These are no longer fringe questions. Prominent physicists like John Wheeler proposed the idea of participatory universe, where observers are not just passive recorders of an external world, but contributors to its unfolding. Not creators in the mythical sense, but agents who help determine which of many quantum potentials actualizes. Now consider this: your brain is made of particles governed by quantum rules. Your neurons fire via electrochemical processes that involve electron tunneling and probabilistic interactions. You are not separate from quantum processes, you are built on them. This leads to a feedback loop. Your consciousness arises from quantum behavior. But that consciousness, in turn, seems to influence quantum systems when it observes them. It's a loop of awareness feeding into structure, and structure feeding into awareness. So what exactly is being observed in these experiments? And who or what is really doing the observing? It's easy to think of the observer as a person with a lab coat and clipboard. But the quantum observer is more subtle. It's any system that causes a potential state to become an actual state. It's the point at which uncertainty yields to outcome. Still, the deeper we go, the more consciousness seems to stand at the edge of these transitions. In theories like orchestra or orchestrated objective reduction, proposed by Roger Penrose and Stuart Hameroff, consciousness may emerge from quantum computations within the brain's microtubules, structures small enough to potentially support coherence at quantum levels. Whether or not this theory holds, the pursuit reflects a broader truth. Consciousness may not be above or outside the quantum world. It may be a field-like phenomenon that interlaces with matter at its root. So where does this leave our understanding of reality? The observer effect suggests that what we perceive as reality isn't purely objective. It's relational, dependent not just on what's out there, but on the interaction between the knower and the known. This erodes the firm line we draw between subject and object. It forces us to ask whether reality is a product of interaction rather than isolation. From this perspective, every moment of attention becomes meaningful. Every act of perception contributes, however subtly, to shaping what becomes real. Focus is not just a mental habit, it may be a directive energy, organizing the possibilities presented by the field into tangible forms. There's another dimension to this, literally. In the quantum multiverse interpretation, all possible outcomes of a quantum event exist in parallel realities. Observation doesn't collapse the wave function, it simply localizes your experience to one of many simultaneously existing outcomes. In this view, consciousness isn't choosing between something and nothing. It's navigating through an infinite sea of probabilities, locking onto specific tracks through a vast branching tree of realities. Again, your attention becomes the key, not because it's magical, but because it's participatory. This begins to sound very close to ancient mystical traditions, teachings that say reality is shaped by the mind, that the world is a mirror of inner belief, that perception creates form. Except now, those ideas are finding echoes in hard science. Not everything aligns perfectly. Quantum mechanics does not prove the power of thought, but it opens the possibility that consciousness is not a bystander, that it plays a central role in the unfolding drama of existence. Now ask yourself, how does this understanding shift your day-to-day awareness? If observation changes outcome, then presence matters. Mindless routine becomes less harmless. Unfocused energy has an effect. Each moment of intentional awareness becomes a subtle influence on the field of possibilities around you. That doesn't mean control, but it does mean participation. The observer paradox shows us that reality is fluid, relational, and unfinished until it is observed. And if you are an observer, then you are already shaping your world more than you know. This realization isn't abstract. It's empowering. The next time you feel small, remember this: your awareness is not passive. It is fundamental. Every moment of clarity, every act of attention, every conscious breath adds structure to the field you inhabit. The mystery remains, but now you know you're not just looking at reality. You're helping write it. Take two particles. Create them together in the same quantum event like a decay or an interaction. Now separate them by inches, by miles, or even by light years. No wires, no waves, no visible signal connects them. But change the state of one, and the other responds instantly. Not quickly, instantly. This phenomenon is known as quantum entanglement. Einstein famously called it spooky action at a distance. He didn't like it. It defied everything classical physics stood for: separation, locality, independence. It hinted at a universe more unified than anyone imagined, where distance might be an illusion and parts are never truly apart. Entanglement isn't theoretical. It's been demonstrated thousands of times, with increasing levels of precision. In the lab, entangled photons, electrons, and atoms routinely show correlations that violate what's known as Bell's inequalities, mathematical limits that no local hidden variable theory can explain. In plain terms, what happens to one particle depends on the state of its partner, even if they're too far apart for any signal to travel between them in time. Not even light-speed communication could explain it. So what's going on? Quantum entanglement arises when two or more particles share a single wave function. Their identities become linked. Measure one and you learn something about the other, not just in terms of knowledge, but in terms of actual outcome. Their properties are no longer individual traits. They are aspects of a shared state. This forces a deep reconsideration of what it means for things to be separate. If entangled particles maintain a shared state across space, it suggests space itself might not be as absolute as we thought. It suggests the deep structure of the universe is non-local, not built on discrete, independent points in space, but on relationships that transcend distance. Now expand this idea beyond physics experiments. Entanglement may not be confined to particles generated in labs. In principle, any two particles that interact can become entangled. That includes the particles in your body, in your brain, in your emotions. You, too, are an ensemble of quantum events, many of which have interacted with the outside world. This invites a provocative idea. Maybe people, places, and even thoughts become entangled in subtle ways. Not metaphorically, physically. Maybe the bond you feel with someone far away has a quantum echo. Maybe the alignment of minds or emotions across distance has a basis in quantum reality. Such suggestions stretch current science, but they're not pure fantasy. Researchers have explored quantum correlations in biological systems, and though definitive proof remains elusive, the possibilities are captivating. Entanglement, after all, is not rare. It's the default state after quantum interaction. What's rare is isolation. In the entangled universe, everything touches everything else, not chaotically but relationally, meaningfully. So what does this mean for consciousness? Some physicists and theorists propose that consciousness may operate as an entangled phenomenon, not confined to skulls, but extended through relationship. A shared wave function across minds, across time, even across states of reality. This doesn't mean telepathy in the cartoon sense. It means we may be far more connected, subtly, than we realize. Thoughts and states of being may resonate across distances if the systems involved share a quantum relationship. This is speculative, yes, but not absurd. Entanglement has already redefined our understanding of information. In quantum computing, entangled bits, or qubits, enable operations that go beyond anything classical systems can achieve. The future of communication may rest on quantum networks where entangled particles transmit secure information without any signal. In such a world, distance becomes an outdated concept. Entanglement also challenges the idea of cause and effect. If the state of one particle influences another instantly, then linear causality, A causes B causes C, starts to break down. Instead, we see patterns of correlation, synchronicity, and mutual definition. This resembles how many ancient wisdom traditions describe the universe, not as a machine, but as a web, a field of relationship, a mirror of mirrors. Quantum entanglement doesn't directly validate those views, but it aligns with them more than classical physics ever did. It opens the door for a worldview in which separation is an illusion, and unity is foundational. This has psychological implications, social, ethical. If we are entangled, then harming another isn't just morally wrong, it disrupts a field we all share. If we are connected at the deepest levels, then healing yourself affects more than your body. It shifts the pattern. It restores coherence to the whole. That's not metaphor, it's principle. Entanglement preserves correlations even when systems are far apart. And coherence, the orderly relationship among parts, is essential for that entanglement to function. Coherence is what keeps quantum relationships from breaking down into noise. Apply this to your own life. When your thoughts are scattered, when your emotions are chaotic, when your attention is divided, coherence breaks. But when your mind, body, and awareness align, when they resonate, you move back toward order, toward clarity, toward connection. This isn't just an internal shift. You are a participant in a shared system. Your coherence supports the larger coherence. Your entanglement becomes stable, influential, and possibly even healing to others. There is still mystery here. No one has fully mapped how entanglement might extend into larger, more complex systems. But we know it happens, and we know it means something. We are not billiard balls bouncing in empty space. We are patterns in a shared quantum field. We are expressions of unity, even when we feel alone. So when you think of someone and they suddenly call, when you feel a deep bond with someone you've never met in person, when synchronicities cluster in moments of meaning, pause before dismissing it. You may be sensing the quiet, non-local web beneath the visible world. The threads of entanglement don't glow. They don't hum, but they hold a message. Nothing exists in isolation. Not particles, not people, not even thoughts. And understanding this isn't just a matter of curiosity. It's a call to awareness. If reality is stitched together by connection, then intention matters. Then empathy is more than emotion. It's alignment. Then healing is more than fixing. It's restoration of relational order. Entanglement reveals the hidden unity behind the surface of things. A unity not built on sameness, but on relationship. Not on control, but on resonance. And now, having traced this hidden thread, we move toward something even more mysterious. The nature of time itself. Time rules every aspect of your life. The ticking of a clock, the aging of your body, the forward march from past to present to future. You live by it, measure by it, are shaped by it. But what if your understanding of time has been fundamentally incomplete? Physics has long treated time as a dimension like space, something measurable, definable, mathematically embedded in equations. In classical mechanics, time flows smoothly and uniformly, independent of anything else. A universal stopwatch ticking away, the same for everyone. But this image collapses under quantum scrutiny. Time at the quantum level is not what it appears to be. It doesn't always flow forward. It doesn't always behave consistently. And in some interpretations, it may not exist at all in the way we experience it. Let's begin with a startling fact. Many of the foundational equations in quantum mechanics are time-symmetric. That means they don't distinguish between forward and backward. The math works perfectly well whether time moves ahead or in reverse. There's no inherent direction, just correlation. So where does our experience of flow come from? It seems that time's arrow, the forward movement we perceive, is not written into the laws of quantum mechanics. Instead, it may be a macroscopic illusion, an emergent property arising from entropy, the tendency of systems to move from order to disorder. In simple terms, we remember the past and not the future because disorder increases. But at the quantum level, where particles don't decay in the same way, this rule begins to break. Certain quantum events appear to allow backward-in-time influence, or at least create the illusion that future outcomes are connected to current states in nonlinear ways. Some experiments in quantum mechanics, like delayed choice and quantum erasure, seem to imply that future measurements can influence present outcomes. The present doesn't just unfold into the future. It might also depend on what will be known later. This isn't science fiction. It's reproducible. In one version of the delayed choice experiment, a photon passes through a beam splitter and either behaves like a particle or a wave depending on how it will be measured after the fact. The choice of how to observe it in the future seems to retroactively change its past behavior. This challenges our most basic assumptions. It calls into question cause and effect, and it whispers of a reality where the timeline is not linear, but interactive. Not a chain of events, but a field of relationships. So let's entertain a possibility. Maybe time, like mass or charge, is not a simple backdrop, but a field. A property that arises from a deeper level of reality. A mode of resonance. A dimension of experience shaped not just by the external world, but by the observer's interaction with it. If this is true, then your perception of time is not passive. It is part of the structure of your reality. And like any field, it could, in theory, be manipulated, expanded, or tuned. Think about how your experience of time already shifts. A minute of silence can feel eternal. An hour of deep focus can pass in what seems like seconds. Time is not constant in your consciousness. It is fluid, elastic, and that elasticity may reflect something deeper than psychology. What if these distortions of time perception are not just brain tricks, but actual shifts in your relationship to the time field? Some theorists suggest that consciousness itself may operate on a plane where time is not sequential. You don't think in straight lines. You recall past experiences while imagining future outcomes, all within the now. Your dreams, insights, and intuitions often bypass linear time entirely. In altered states, through meditation, trauma, or transcendent experience, people frequently report distortions in time perception. Moments stretch, hours vanish. Events are seen from outside the timeline. Are these just neurological artifacts? Or glimpses into the deeper structure of time? The field perspective allows for the latter. If time is not a line but a dimension you move through, like depth or height, then different frequencies of consciousness might correspond to different relationships with time. Just as light moves differently depending on the medium it travels through, awareness might interact with time differently depending on its vibrational state. High coherence states, like focused intention, deep stillness, or emotional clarity, could alter how your consciousness engages with the timeline. This would explain why moments of great presence seem timeless, why trauma can freeze time, why creative flow distorts it. You're not just reacting to time, you're moving through it with a field-like interface. Now imagine the implications. If time is not fixed, if the future is not fully formed, if your awareness can, in some way, affect temporal structure, then causality becomes a two-way street. Not only do your actions affect your future, but your future possibilities might influence your present state. This idea finds a reflection in some models of retrocausality. In these models, events can be influenced by future boundary conditions. It's not about changing the past. It's about recognizing that the entire timeline may be a dynamic, interconnected structure where feedback occurs across directions. This ties into the concept of precognition, knowing something before it happens. Though often dismissed, some research into intuition, déjà vu, and subconscious pattern recognition suggests that the mind may, under certain conditions, access information outside the classical flow of time. It's not about seeing the future in a deterministic sense. It's about sensing the potential futures encoded in the quantum field. Futures that already exist as probabilities, awaiting collapse into form. And once again, your attention matters. Where you place your focus may influence not just what happens, but when it happens. Not because you override time, but because you align with a timeline where certain outcomes are more probable. This aligns with theories of parallel realities, which we'll explore next. But for now, understand this. Time is not a straight line. It is a structure shaped by energy, information, and awareness. You don't just move through time, you help define its flow through your choices, your coherence, and your connection to the quantum fields that underpin reality. You are not a passive traveler on a one-way road. You are a field-based being interacting with a time field that may be more malleable, more responsive, and more alive than anything science has yet been able to fully grasp. The ticking clock may be a rhythm, but the symphony is far more complex. And now, as we move beyond linear time, we open a new possibility. One where the present is just one of many tracks. Let's explore the realm of quantum potentials and parallel realities. Every decision you make carves a path. Every choice, no matter how small, feels like it takes you in a single direction. But is that really all that happens? Or are the other paths still alive, playing out, fully formed, just in a reality you no longer observe? Quantum mechanics offers a staggering implication. What we think of as a single, linear outcome might only be one among countless possibilities, each just as real, just as structured, and just as complete. This is the realm of the many worlds interpretation. According to this framework, every quantum event doesn't choose a single outcome. Instead, all possible outcomes occur, each one in its own coherent version of reality. What we call reality is just the branch we happen to be experiencing. The others haven't disappeared. They continue parallel to our own, evolving with their own logic, their own histories, their own futures. This isn't fantasy. It arises directly from the mathematics of quantum mechanics. In the standard formulation, when a particle exists in a superposition, a mix of all possible states measurement collapses it into one outcome. But in the many worlds view, nothing collapses. The wave function keeps evolving, and every possible result becomes real in a separate, non-interacting universe. You're not watching the universe split. You're moving through a vast structure of parallel pathways, each one a complete version of reality with its own timeline, its own conditions, and its own you. If that sounds overwhelming, it should. But let's bring it down to something more intuitive. Start with a simple event. Flipping a coin. Heads or tails. In your experience, you only see one result. But quantum theory says that, beneath the surface, reality doesn't delete the other outcome. It branches. There's a version of the universe where the coin landed differently, and your memory, choices, and consequences unfold accordingly. Now scale that up. Each moment is filled with branching possibilities. Some subtle, like whether you raise your eyebrow during a conversation. Some massive, like whether you take a new job, leave a relationship, or speak a truth you've been hiding. Every moment is a fork in the road, and quantum mechanics suggests that all forks are followed, just not in the same reality. So what determines which version you experience? This is where quantum potential becomes more than just abstract theory. While all versions may exist, your awareness follows a specific line through the field of possibilities. And the direction you move may depend on resonance, on alignment between your state of being and the timeline it corresponds to. In practical terms, this means your internal condition, your beliefs, emotions, expectations, may act as a tuning mechanism. Just as a radio receiver locks onto a specific frequency, your consciousness may lock onto a specific version of reality. Not because you force the world to change, but because you shift your alignment to match the version where that condition already exists. This is not wishful thinking. It's structure. The quantum field contains all potentials. They are not vague dreams. They are specific arrangements of energy, form, and outcome. And they don't have to be distant. They are nested around you, separated not by miles or minutes, but by vibrational distance, the energetic and informational difference between your current state and the one you wish to inhabit. This is where intention gains power. When you hold a clear mental image, infused with emotional charge and unwavering belief, you create coherence in your field. That coherence acts like a frequency lock, pulling your awareness toward the timeline that matches the image you're holding. It's not magic. It's physics. Now, this doesn't mean every passing thought instantly reshapes reality. Most thoughts are incoherent, scattered, or self-contradictory. They don't sustain enough energy or focus to align with any timeline long enough for you to notice a change. But when focus sharpens, when emotional alignment deepens, when doubt drops away, something shifts. Not the outer world first, but your relationship to it, your perception, your emotional signature, your energy state, and that shift begins to magnetize a different trajectory. You start noticing different opportunities. You act differently. You respond to people with a new pattern. From the outside, it looks like personal growth or good luck. But from the quantum perspective, you're moving laterally, not just forward. You're selecting from a spread of coexisting realities. This leads to a subtle but powerful idea. The future isn't fixed. It's a cloud of possibilities, all encoded in the quantum field, awaiting the directive of consciousness to collapse into form. And you don't collapse it all at once. You guide it moment by moment, choice by choice, frequency by frequency. Now consider this. The most probable timeline, the one you keep experiencing, is not always the most desirable. It's just the one that matches your current signature. If your expectations are filled with fear, limitation, or resignation, then the version of reality you stay tuned to will reflect that. But if you shift your core frequency, your beliefs, your focus, your emotional habits, you can begin to match different patterns. Not overnight, not with blind optimism, but with deep coherence. Quantum potentials don't respond to words. They respond to energy structure, to alignment between who you are and what you tune into. And the tuning happens at the level of belief, identity, and clarity. This is not a tool for control. It's a recognition of structure. You are already choosing. You are already moving through versions of reality with every breath. The question is whether you're doing it unconsciously or with awareness. And this understanding can transform how you relate to regret. If all versions of you exist somewhere, then your so-called wrong turns don't have to define you. They exist as completed arcs in their own tracks. But so do the other versions, the bold version, the healed version, the version who followed intuition instead of fear. And your connection to those versions isn't fantasy. It's available through resonance. This is where practices like visualization gain meaning. Not because they manifest objects from nowhere, but because they shift your vibrational alignment to a timeline where the conditions you're imagining already exist. Visualization isn't projection. It's selection. The act of imagining a preferred state, vividly, emotionally, consistently, isn't childish. It's quantum navigation. The version of reality you desire may already exist, structured and complete in the field of potential. But you access it not by force, but by frequency. This invites a radical humility. The field is infinite. You are not its master, but you are its participant. And your awareness is the steering wheel, always active, always guiding. So the next time you face a choice, remember, you're not just moving forward. You may be shifting sideways, toward a completely different strand of reality. One that carries its own lessons, people, and possibilities. And now, having opened the door to parallel realities, we confront a deeper question still. Where does awareness itself come from? It's time to consider whether consciousness isn't just shaped by reality, but shapes reality through its own field. You think, you feel, you know you exist. But what is this knowing? What is this presence behind your thoughts? The witness, the experiencer, the you that sees without eyes and feels without touching. Science has tried to explain consciousness for centuries. Most conventional theories treat it as a byproduct of the brain, a side effect of neurons firing in complex patterns, a trick of biology, an accident of evolution. But what if this view is fundamentally incomplete? What if consciousness is not produced by matter, but instead underlies it? What if awareness is not a reaction, but a field, just as real, just as omnipresent, and just as essential as the electromagnetic or gravitational fields that shape the universe? This isn't pseudoscience. It's a serious proposal from physicists, philosophers, and neuroscientists who recognize that no current theory fully explains how matter gives rise to mind. Electrical impulses and chemical reactions can describe the mechanics of thought, but not the felt experience. Not the qualia. Not the light behind your eyes. So let's consider a radical but increasingly credible idea. Consciousness is not an emergent property of brains. Brains are receivers, tuners, translators. They shape the experience of consciousness, but they don't create it. The idea of consciousness as a field is supported by thinkers like David Bohm, whose concept of the implicate order suggests that consciousness and matter arise from the same deeper structure, an unbroken wholeness underlying all that is. It's echoed by neuroscientist Carl Pribram's holographic brain theory, in which the brain functions more like a frequency processor than a hard drive. In this view, awareness is not contained in the skull. It's non-local, permeates reality. It manifests through you, but it's not bound by you. This aligns with ancient spiritual traditions that describe consciousness as a fundamental force, called different names across cultures. Atman, Chi, spirit, source. Not a mental activity, but the root field from which both thought and form emerge. Now consider what this means in the language of quantum fields. Just as there is an electron field, a photon field, and a Higgs field, imagine a consciousness field, invisible yet present everywhere. Not composed of particles, but capable of organizing them. A field that does not depend on space or time, but contains them. From this perspective, your awareness is a focal point within a universal field of intelligence. Your personal identity, your ego, your memories, your biology are localized patterns shaped by experience. But the core of your awareness is not separate. It's a point of access to something vast and non-local. This helps explain phenomena that classical science struggles with. Experiences of telepathy, intuition, or sudden insight may not require transmission across space. They may be field effects, instantaneous connections across a shared layer of consciousness that doesn't recognize distance the way spacetime does. This is not mystical conjecture. It's consistent with how entangled quantum systems behave. When you entangle two particles, a change in one is reflected in the other, regardless of distance. Now apply that to awareness. If consciousness is a field, then all aware beings may be expressions of the same underlying structure. Not duplicates, not illusions, but differentiated points in a unified field. And that changes how you see others. Suddenly, empathy is more than a virtue, it's a recognition of shared being. Compassion is not charity, it's coherence. Harm against others is not external, it destabilizes the field you also inhabit. Now consider the implications for experience itself. If consciousness is a field, then it's not just perceiving the world, it's shaping it. Just as ripples in the electromagnetic field create photons, ripples in the consciousness field may correspond to thoughts, emotions, and even quantum outcomes. This loops back to the observer effect. It's not just that measurement collapses the wave function, it may be that awareness itself is the function that selects outcomes. Not through attention alone, but through presence, through participation, through the conscious recognition of possibility. And this gives a deeper meaning to practices like mindfulness and meditation. When you become deeply still, when thought slows, when mental chatter fades, you're not turning off awareness. You're tuning into it. You're withdrawing from the localized noise of the brain and returning to the broader field. And from that place, insights arise. Peace emerges. Healing accelerates. That's not because stillness is relaxing. It's because it realigns your personal pattern with the fundamental order of the field. In this space, synchronicities increase. Clarity expands. The line between internal and external begins to blur. You are not dreaming. You are perceiving the subtle edge where the consciousness field meets the quantum field, where thought begins to shape form, where awareness becomes creative. This is where manifestation theories begin to gain structure. It's not that you create your reality with shallow affirmation. It's that sustained awareness, rooted in the consciousness field, has the power to select realities from the quantum potential. Not through ego, through coherence. Your thoughts don't control the world, but the state of your consciousness influences which version of the world becomes available to you. This isn't metaphysical projection, it's field interaction. And you've already experienced it. When you shift your mindset, things around you shift. People respond differently. Opportunities align. Clarity arises. It's not coincidence. It's resonance. The consciousness field responds not to demands, but to coherence. Not to words, but to energy. The clearer your inner state, the more aligned your external experience becomes. Not because reality bends to your will, but because you stop resisting its deeper pattern. And this is the silent invitation of the field. Return to alignment. Not perfection, not control. Alignment. When your personal mind merges with the larger field, life becomes more fluid. Challenges remain, but they appear as part of an unfolding intelligence, not random cruelty. You begin to sense timing, feel patterns, navigate intuitively. This is not theory. It is practice. The more you return to awareness, not thought, not belief, but awareness itself, the more you reconnect with the field that holds all intelligence. You don't gain power. You dissolve the illusion of separation from it. And that shift is the gateway to transformation. Because if consciousness is a field, then healing, growth, and even extraordinary insight become expressions of returning to coherence with it. The field does not judge. It reflects. It organizes. And the clearer you become, the more it reflects harmony through you. So now ask, how much of your suffering comes from resisting this field? From clinging to identities, outcomes, and fears that disrupt the signal? Let them go. The field of consciousness is not lost. It is waiting beneath your thoughts, beneath your doubts, beneath the noise. It is silent, present, undivided. and it is ready to meet you the moment you remember you were never separate. From this place of inner stillness and expanded connection, we now enter an even more refined understanding. Reality as vibration, not symbolically, structurally. Look closely at anything, your hand, a stone, the chair you're sitting on. What appears solid is, at its core, a system in motion. Electrons whirl around nuclei. Particles blink in and out of existence. Fields pulse with activity, even in the darkest vacuum. Everything moves. Nothing is ever truly still. Vibration is not metaphor, it is structure. At the heart of quantum field theory, vibration is the language through which matter expresses itself. Every particle is a ripple. Every atom is a symphony. What you experience as the physical world is actually a layered orchestration of energetic patterns, vibrations stacked into form. So what is reality? Not fixed matter, but oscillation, frequency, resonance. The entire universe, from galaxies to brainwaves, is composed of varying levels of vibration, each with its own characteristics, interactions, and effects. And those frequencies determine not just how things look or sound, but how they behave. Start with the basics. Quantum fields are not stationary. They are dynamic systems constantly oscillating. When those oscillations reach certain thresholds, they manifest as particles. An electron isn't a little dot, it's a stable pattern of vibration in the electron field. A photon isn't a light bullet, it's a rhythmic disturbance in the electromagnetic field. Matter is music. Energy is rhythm. Structure is harmony. But this isn't limited to what we call physical matter. Your thoughts, emotions, and states of consciousness also carry frequencies. Brainwave activity can be measured in hertz. Emotional states generate measurable changes in the electromagnetic field of the heart and brain. Even your cellular processes are governed by electrical potentials and vibrational cues. So what happens when your personal vibration interacts with the vibrations of the world around you? It forms resonance patterns, constructive or destructive, aligned or dissonant. Just as two musical notes can either harmonize or clash, your energetic state influences how you experience the quantum field. That includes your relationships, your health, and even the events that unfold around you. This is not just energetic poetry. It's rooted in physics. In systems theory, resonance occurs when one system vibrates at the natural frequency of another, amplifying its energy. In quantum mechanics, coherent states, where particles or waves vibrate in synchrony, are more stable, more ordered, more capable of transferring information. Now apply that principle to human experience. When your thoughts, emotions, and actions vibrate in alignment, when they are coherent, you enter a state of internal resonance. You feel centered, clear, and empowered. This inner harmony has outer effects. People respond to you differently. Decisions feel fluid. Synchronicities appear more often. You're not imagining it. You are interacting with the field more efficiently because you're no longer generating chaotic noise. Your vibrational signal becomes clean, focused, and powerful. It matches the frequency of the experiences you desire, and that match draws them into your reality. You don't need to understand every quantum equation to feel this. You've already experienced it. You've walked into rooms where the energy felt heavy, where, without a word, you knew something was wrong. You've met people whose presence lifted you, energized you, calmed you. That's vibration. The reason is simple. Everything is emitting frequency. Not just machines and instruments, but bodies, minds, and even intentions. Your field, composed of subtle electromagnetic and quantum interactions, constantly exchanges energy with the environment, and that exchange shapes experience. So the question becomes, what frequency are you emitting? Not what words are you saying, not what goals are you writing down, but what is the emotional, mental, and energetic signal that radiates from you moment to moment? Is it scattered or focused? Is it coherent or conflicted? Is it dominated by fear and resistance, or infused with clarity and openness? These are not just philosophical questions. They determine the resonance you create with the field. And because the quantum field responds to frequency, not to appearance, your true vibration is the blueprint that guides your trajectory. This is why external rituals, no matter how elaborate, are powerless if they lack inner resonance. It's not the words, it's the frequency behind them. You can speak of abundance while radiating lack. You can ask for love while vibrating with self-rejection. The field doesn't judge. It reflects. It reflects what you are, not what you say you want. And yet this is not cause for despair, it's power. Because frequency can be changed. Your vibration is not a fixed trait. It is a state, and it can shift in a moment with attention, awareness, and intention. When you bring coherence to your thoughts, emotions, and body, your entire system begins to vibrate more efficiently. Breathing slows, the heart finds rhythm, the brain synchronizes across hemispheres. This physiological coherence is measurable, and the moment it begins, your field changes. This is why practices like meditation, breath work, and sound healing are more than spiritual trends. They work directly with your vibration. They interrupt incoherence. They tune your system to frequencies that are not only healthier, but more aligned with order, flow, and clarity. Sound, in particular, is powerful because it interacts with your body at every level. You're not just hearing music, you're absorbing it. Your bones, fluids, and tissues are vibrationally responsive. Specific frequencies can stimulate healing, enhance focus, or release emotional blockages. And it doesn't end at the body. Your personal vibration affects the people around you. Ever walked into a space and felt tension, even in silence? That's vibrational incoherence being felt, shared, and often absorbed. Conversely, when someone is deeply centered, their energy creates a kind of gravitational pull, a coherent field that stabilizes others without effort. This is why your personal alignment is not selfish. It's service. Every moment you bring yourself into resonance, you contribute to the overall coherence of the field we all share. But alignment does not mean perfection. You don't have to eliminate every fear or doubt. You only need to create harmony between your parts, between intention and action, between belief and emotion. When those elements are in tune, the frequency becomes powerful. It moves the field. It shapes your experience. And this brings us to perhaps the most important realization. Vibration is the interface between inner and outer, between consciousness and form. It is the translator between what you believe and what you live. Change the vibration, and you change the translation. This isn't about escaping the material world. It's about understanding how it works beneath the surface. You are not a static object. You are a dynamic waveform in continuous conversation with the universe. And the frequency you carry is the language you speak, whether you're aware of it or not. So listen to your own signal. Is it sharp with resistance or soft with openness? Is it erratic with self-doubt or steady with intention? You don't have to guess. You can feel it. You already do. And if you're not in resonance with what you want, don't force it. Tune it. Tuning doesn't require drama. It requires presence, attention, stillness, a willingness to drop noise and recenter your system. The clearer you become, the more your life reflects clarity. The calmer your field, the more your path unfolds without effort. You are a frequency being in a frequency universe. You are not here to fight the current. You are here to tune into the current that matches who you really are. And when you do, the quantum field listens, because it always has. Manifestation has become a buzzword thrown around in social media posts, vision boards, and self-help seminars. But beneath the surface of wishful thinking lies a deeper, more powerful truth. One that's not about superstition or magical thinking, but about structure, coherence, and how quantum fields actually respond to information. At its core, manifestation is not about getting what you want. It's about aligning with a version of reality where what you desire already exists. The outcome is not created by force or begging the universe. It emerges when your state matches the conditions of the desired possibility within the quantum field. This isn't belief for the sake of comfort. It's pattern recognition. The quantum field doesn't respond to what you say. It responds to what you are, to the energetic and emotional imprint you emit in each moment. That imprint, your vibrational state, interacts with the field in real time, and it determines which probabilities rise from potential into experience. To understand this, return to the concept of superposition. Before measurement, a quantum system exists in all possible states at once. It is not one thing or another, it is a cloud of possibilities. Observation brings one of those into reality. But what collapses the wave function into a specific outcome? In experiments, it's the act of interaction, the transfer of information that causes the shift. Now replace the lab equipment with your awareness. Your thoughts, emotions, expectations, and beliefs act as an interface with the quantum field. You're not observing electrons. You're observing your life. And every observation, especially those charged with emotional intensity, collapses certain potentialities into the timeline you experience. This is why random thoughts don't shape your world. But focused thought, charged with feeling and sustained by belief, absolutely does. Because now you're no longer a background participant. You are introducing coherent energy into the field. You are selecting. Selection is the key. The quantum field holds infinite possibilities. Every outcome, every variation of your life, already exists as a vibrational structure. You are not trying to create something from nothing. You are choosing, by your vibration, which version of that structure becomes visible. Think of the field like a cosmic hard drive, filled with files. Every version of you, the wealthy one, the fulfilled one, the healed one, is already there. Manifestation is not programming the file. It's opening the right one. And the password is frequency. When people say act as if, they're brushing against this truth. Not because pretending tricks the universe, but because embodying the state of the desired outcome tunes your field to the corresponding timeline. You're not faking success. You're matching the vibration where success is already a fact. But this requires internal coherence. If your thoughts are focused on abundance but your emotional body is steeped in fear, you send mixed signals to the field. Incoherence creates instability. It weakens the signal. And a weak signal cannot lock onto a strong reality. That's why clarity is everything. To manifest effectively, you must bring your system mind, body, emotion, and belief into a single unified frequency. That frequency acts as a tuning fork. It rings through the quantum field and stabilizes a specific pattern. That pattern, over time, crystallizes as experience. Now let's take this a step deeper. Consider the double-slit experiment again. When unmeasured, particles behave like waves. But when observed, they act like particles, concrete, localized outcomes. The key is not the physical act of looking. It's the interaction that transfers information. In your life, observation means focus, emotional attention, mental energy. What you focus on with intensity and consistency becomes more probable in your field. You are not passively watching reality unfold. You are informing the wave function. Every time you affirm, imagine, or dwell on something, you add energy to its pattern. But not all observation is equal. Casual attention scatters energy. Focused, coherent attention consolidates it. Think of a magnifying glass. Weak sunlight is harmless, but focused through a lens, it ignites fire. Your intention is the lens. Your belief is the stability. Your emotion is the fuel. That's the formula. Intention plus belief plus emotion equals coherence. When these elements align, the quantum field responds not because it's granting a wish, but because you've matched the internal conditions of a specific outcome. You've made it statistically dominant. You've shifted your resonance to that reality's frequency. And this is where action comes in, not as force but as reinforcement. When you act in alignment with the desired outcome, you lock the frequency. You show the field, this is my reality now. Your nervous system gets the signal. Your cells calibrate. Your field stabilizes. You stop oscillating between desire and doubt. Action is not just about doing. It's about anchoring. A reality must be stabilized through repetition, just like in quantum systems. If you don't reinforce the signal, the pattern dissolves. Your default programming returns. But when you act, feel, and think from the new state consistently, the field begins to conform. Not because it's obeying you, but because you've become a vibrational match to the outcome you seek. And this process doesn't require perfection. It requires persistence. The field is not fragile. It doesn't need you to fake constant happiness. It responds to patterns. And patterns are created through repetition, not intensity. This is why daily alignment matters more than peak moments. Small choices made in coherence carry massive influence. But manifestation is not always instant. That's where many fall into doubt. In quantum terms, even when a particle is likely to appear, it doesn't appear instantly. Probabilities must stabilize. The field needs coherence over time. When you interrupt the process with disbelief, you reset the signal. You destabilize the outcome. So patience is not passive. It's active stability. It's maintaining the frequency long enough for the field to reflect it back to you. This leads to a profound shift in responsibility. You are not a victim of randomness. You are not a puppet in someone else's simulation. You are a conscious field interacting with the quantum fabric of potential, moment by moment, outcome by outcome. And manifestation is not about asking the universe. It's about becoming the version of you who already has what you seek. Not pretending, not waiting, becoming, because that version already exists, in the field, right now. And you reach it not by trying harder, but by tuning yourself to its vibration and holding that signal steady, without needing proof before belief. Proof comes after alignment, not before. This is the edge where physics meets inner power, where awareness meets probability, where coherence becomes your tool, not your theory. And now, with this deeper understanding of manifestation through quantum structure, we step into an even more expansive vision. The idea that everything matter, mind, and meaning is unified in a single field. Science and spirituality have long walked parallel paths, one focused on measurable phenomena, the other on direct experience. For centuries, they seemed opposed, one seeking proof, the other trusting intuition. But now, at the edges of quantum theory, relativity, and consciousness research, something remarkable is happening. They're starting to converge. At the heart of this convergence is a single, elegant idea. There is one field that underlies all of existence. Not just the material world, not just thought, but everything. A unified field that includes matter, energy, consciousness, time, and even the structure of space itself. This idea isn't abstract philosophy. It emerges directly from the deepest levels of theoretical physics. From Einstein's attempts to unify gravity and electromagnetism, to string theory's extra dimensions, to quantum gravity and loop field theories, modern science is obsessed with finding one equation, one field, one structure that binds it all. This pursuit of unity is not just mathematical. It is existential. Because if all forces and all particles are expressions of a single field, then the division between object and subject, self and other, becomes an illusion. What we call separate things are not separate. They are localized expressions of the same deeper whole. You are not in the universe. You are the universe expressed through the filter of identity. In physics, the unified field is theorized to be a quantum field that contains all other fields, gravity, electromagnetism, the strong and weak nuclear forces, as different modes of a single system. Like chords in a symphony, each interaction emerges from the same underlying resonance. If this is true, then the distinctions between matter and energy dissolve. Everything is frequency. Everything is pattern. Everything is encoded in the structure of this one field. But here's where it becomes truly transformational. Spiritual traditions across the world have pointed to this reality for millennia. They've used different names: Brahman, the Tao, the Divine Matrix, the Great Spirit, but the essence is the same. There is one source, one intelligence, one invisible presence that expresses itself through every form, every being, and every moment. In this context, the unified field isn't just a scientific model. It's the bridge between science and spiritual insight. From this view, prayer isn't superstition, it's resonance. Meditation isn't withdrawal, it's realignment. Ritual isn't magic, it's vibrational entrainment with the deeper field of reality. These practices work not because they bypass laws of nature, but because they align with them. Every time you quiet the mind, you reduce interference in your field. Every time you focus your intention with feeling, you send a coherent signal. Every time you express gratitude, compassion, or love, you elevate your personal vibration. These states bring you closer to the frequency of the unified field, which, according to every mystical tradition, is order, harmony, and intelligence. The field is not distant. It is not cold. It is not separate. It is the substrate of your being. And your connection to it isn't something to be gained. It's something to be remembered. You were never outside of it. But when your mind is filled with fear, resistance, and separation, you feel disconnected. That disconnection isn't real. It's perceptual. It's the interference pattern of incoherence. The moment you still your inner chaos, the field is there. Immediate, silent, present. In this light, healing is not a process of fixing. It's a process of removing interference, letting the body return to its natural state of coherence with the field. True wellness is resonance, not resistance. It's the frequency of wholeness reasserting itself through you. And this principle applies not only to health, but to your entire life. When your thoughts, emotions, and actions are aligned, you resonate with the field's higher orders. You find flow, synchronicity, guidance, not as magical events, but as structural consequences of vibrational alignment. The field doesn't punish or reward. It reflects. It mirrors back your frequency, translated into experience. This is why the ancient Hermetic law states, as within, so without. When you change your internal state, your interaction with the field changes. The world begins to move in rhythm with you. And the deeper your connection to the field, the more effortless your actions become. Decisions feel guided. Creativity flows. You act not from control, but from clarity. This is the foundation of spiritual science, the recognition that inner reality and outer reality are not two domains, but one continuum. A shift in your consciousness isn't just a mental event. It's a field event. It has consequences in the quantum structure of your experience. From this perspective, even your identity is fluid. You are not a fixed self. You are a dynamic pattern in the field, a pattern formed by belief, memory, culture, and habit. When you question those structures, when you release limiting narratives, you change the pattern. You create space for a new signal to emerge. And that signal can carry any expression. A version of you that is wise, empowered, healed, inspired, it already exists in the field. You don't need to invent it. You need to access it. And that access begins by quieting the distortion of fear, guilt, and shame. These are not just emotions. They are low-frequency interference patterns that block connection to the field's coherence. When you drop those patterns, even briefly, you begin to feel something deeper. Stillness, presence, expansion. You don't have to label it, but you know it when you feel it. That sensation is the whisper of the field. And as you spend more time in that space, through meditation, breath, nature, art, you begin to remember. You begin to see through the illusion of separation. You realize that the field isn't just around you. It is you. And every person you meet is not a stranger, but another wave in the same ocean. This realization is the root of compassion, not as an ethical rule, but as a vibrational truth. What you do to another, you do to the field. What you withhold, you deny yourself, because there is no outside. There is only the field, experiencing itself in infinite form. This is not abstract theory. It's the deepest architecture of your being. And once you begin to live from this awareness, life changes. Not because the world becomes perfect, but because your interaction with it becomes conscious, deliberate, aligned. You begin to listen to the field. You feel its rhythms. You follow its signals. You act not from fear, but from knowing. And knowing is the natural language of the field. This is spiritual science. Not faith in the invisible, but understanding the structure behind the visible. Not escaping reality, but engaging it at its most fundamental level. And now that you've touched the essence of the unified field, where matter and mind merge, you're ready to explore how to use this awareness practically. Because knowing is not enough. You must learn how to interact with the field, how to tune yourself, refine your signal, and become a conscious architect of experience. You now understand that reality isn't solid. It's vibrational. That thought isn't passive, it's energetic. That consciousness doesn't float in the body. It exists as part of a living field that connects and shapes everything. But understanding isn't the endpoint. It's the beginning of something far more important: interaction. The quantum field doesn't belong to scientists or mystics. It is the medium in which you already live, move, and create. The difference between unconscious and conscious living is simply whether you're shaping your life by default or by design. The truth is, you're always influencing the field. Every thought, emotion, and belief you carry sends a frequency into it. But when you become aware of that influence, you gain the ability to refine it, strengthen it, direct it with clarity and focus. And this is where tools become essential, not as gadgets or tricks, but as inner technologies that help you create coherence between your internal state and the external experiences you attract. The first and most powerful tool: intention. Intention is not wishful thinking. It is a focused frequency. It acts as a signal sent into the field, aligning your internal structure with a particular outcome or reality. But for intention to be effective, it must be clear, coherent, and sustained. A vague intention, like, "I want to be happy," sends a diffuse signal. The field doesn't recognize abstract wants. It responds to specific vibration. So if you want to activate intention, you must define it clearly. Not as a mental idea, but as a felt experience. You must know what the outcome would feel like emotionally, energetically, before it shows up externally. Next is visualization. Visualization works not because the images are magic, but because they create internal resonance. When you vividly picture a reality, seeing it, hearing it, feeling it, you condition your nervous system to that state. You begin to become the version of yourself who inhabits that timeline. But this isn't daydreaming. It requires presence. You must enter the image, engage it, practice it like an athlete rehearsing a perfect move. Not hoping, but rehearsing certainty. This primes your field. And when done consistently, it shifts your identity from someone who wants change to someone already living the change. That shift is key. The field doesn't deliver what you want. It reflects who you are. Another essential tool: breathwork. Breath is the interface between mind and body, between the conscious and unconscious systems. It is your most direct access to the autonomic nervous system. But more importantly, it is a frequency regulator. When your breath is shallow, erratic, or unconscious, your nervous system remains in a reactive state. Coherence is impossible. But when you slow and deepen the breath, especially with rhythm, you begin to regulate brainwaves, heart rate, and energetic flow. Your system shifts from fight or flight to rest and create. Simple breathing patterns like 4-7-8, box breathing, or coherent breathing 5-5 can instantly bring your field into harmony. And once coherence is established, all other practices, intention, visualization, emotional alignment, become exponentially more effective. Then there's emotional mastery. Emotion is not weakness or noise. It is signal. It is fuel for field interaction. Every emotion has a frequency, and when felt fully and clearly, it carries energy into the field. High-frequency emotions like gratitude, love, appreciation, and awe create resonance. They stabilize patterns of harmony, growth, and opportunity. But this doesn't mean you suppress lower emotions. It means you recognize them as energetic disturbances, not wrong but misaligned, and consciously choose to shift state. How? By not identifying with them. You can feel anger without becoming it. You can observe fear without feeding it. Once you realize emotions are energy moving through you, not definitions of who you are, you gain the power to shift. Practice gratitude even when nothing seems to be working. Feel appreciation not as a mental exercise, but as a full-body frequency. These states are not naive, they're electromagnetic retuning. Next is movement. The body is not an accessory to consciousness. It is a conductor. When you move with awareness, through practices like yoga, dance, qigong, or even mindful walking, you activate dormant frequencies. You open energetic pathways. You discharge blocked emotion. Stillness is powerful, but it must be balanced with motion. The field responds to kinetic energy. When your body moves in rhythm with your breath and focus, You become a living antenna, broadcasting a coherent signal into the quantum medium. This is especially true in natural environments. Spending time in nature recalibrates your field. The Earth's natural frequency, known as the Schumann resonance, entrains your own electromagnetic field to a more stable, healing state. Trees, water, sun, wind. These aren't scenery. They are tuning instruments. Now let's look at sound and frequency. Sound affects matter. At the microscopic level, vibration can rearrange physical particles. In your body, it alters brainwave activity, heart rate, and hormone levels. This is why certain sounds, like solfeggio tones, binaural beats, chanting, or harmonic instruments, can shift your state profoundly. When used with intention, sound becomes a direct field intervention. You don't just hear it, you tune to it. You can use sound to cleanse incoherence, amplify focus, or deepen meditative states. Even your voice, when used consciously, becomes a vibrational tool. Words carry frequency, not just their meaning but their sound. This is why mantras, affirmations, and sacred chants have persisted across cultures. They're not symbolic, they're vibrational instructions to the field. Another subtle but vital tool: environmental alignment. Your surroundings affect your frequency. Cluttered, chaotic spaces reinforce disordered energy. Environments infused with beauty, order, and natural elements create harmony. Don't underestimate the power of your space to either support or sabotage your coherence. Even more importantly, relationships affect your field. People carry energy. Some amplify you, others drain you. This is not judgment, it's physics. Your field is constantly in exchange with those around you. Be discerning. Spend time with people who reflect the version of reality you're aligning with. Now comes the most advanced tool: identity alignment. This means becoming the version of yourself who already lives in the desired state. Not performing, not pretending, becoming. Identity is the most powerful frequency you emit. If your outer efforts contradict your inner self-image, the field reflects the contradiction. So the question is, who are you being? Not what are you doing, not what are you hoping, but who are you in your thoughts, your habits, your expectations? If you want change, shift identity. Begin with small choices that reflect the new self. The field will follow. You don't need to master every tool at once. Choose one. Practice it daily. Let it change you. As your frequency becomes more stable, the rest will unfold naturally. Interaction with the field is not mystical. It is consistent, structured, and reliable once coherence is achieved. The tools are simple. The challenge is discipline. But as you apply them, you will begin to notice something subtle and powerful. The field is not out there. It's responding from within. It is you. It always has been. Next, we move into the final vision. What life becomes when you stop seeing yourself as a body and start understanding yourself as a field. You've been taught to see yourself as a body, a biological machine, a container of thoughts, memories, and personality traits, moving through a world made of solid objects and fixed laws. But this perception is incomplete. And now it's time to go beyond it. Because you are not just a body. You are not just a mind. You are not even a you in the way you've been conditioned to believe. You are a field, an energetic pattern, a conscious waveform, a node of awareness in an intelligent sea of vibrating information. And once you begin to experience life from that truth, everything changes. This is the beginning of field exploration. Not through study but through being. Being a field explorer means releasing the false sense of solidity that defines your limits. It means recognizing that the boundaries you've drawn around self are conceptual. Mental scaffolding. Useful at times, but ultimately artificial. The truth is, you extend far beyond your skin. Your electromagnetic field, your emotional resonance, your thought patterns, all interact with the world around you constantly. Not symbolically, not spiritually, literally. Every action you take, every breath you draw, every feeling you embody alters your field, and therefore the space you're in. When you stop identifying as just a physical form, you realize that you are in constant relationship with the quantum structure of reality. You stop being a passive observer. You become an active participant, shaping, sensing, adjusting, flowing. You become responsive to patterns, not just events. You begin to see reality not as a linear chain of causes and effects, but as a fluid matrix of probabilities, potentials, and interactions. Some are visible, some are not, but all are felt. As a field explorer, you learn to trust that felt sense, to read vibration, to navigate using more than logic. This isn't fantasy, it's function. The more aware you become of your own field, the more sensitive you become to others. You walk into a room and sense energy shifts. You interact with people and feel coherence or distortion. You enter new situations and pick up on timelines, choices, outcomes without needing to analyze them. This is not mystical intuition. It is the intelligence of a field system coming online. And it doesn't mean you always know what to do, but it does mean you know how to tune in. That knowing alone changes how you make decisions, how you relate, how you live. Living as a field means stepping out of force and into resonance. You stop trying to control reality. You start harmonizing with it. You learn that the path of least resistance is not weakness. It's the current of coherence. You listen for what feels aligned. You wait for the field to respond. You act not from reaction, but from resonance. This is how nature operates. A tree doesn't strive to grow. It aligns with the field. Water doesn't force its path. It follows gravity, structure, vibration. As a field explorer, you return to this same organic intelligence. You stop separating yourself from life. You become part of its rhythm again. And as you do, something unexpected happens. You stop needing external validation. You stop looking for certainty in outcomes, because you begin to trust the feedback of the field. You feel when something is aligned, even if it doesn't make sense yet. You sense when a choice carries expansion, even if it looks irrational. You live not from calculation, but from energetic literacy. This doesn't mean abandoning thinking. It means placing thought in its rightful place as a tool, not a master. Your body, your breath, your emotion, your awareness, they all become instruments of perception. And when they harmonize, your decisions come from a deeper wisdom. Living this way also changes your goals. You stop chasing fixed achievements. You start aiming for states of being. You realize that the deeper goal was never the object, but the feeling you believed the object would bring. And when you embody that frequency now, without waiting, the outer reality reorganizes. You are not abandoning ambition. You are aligning it with reality's architecture. Success becomes not accumulation, but resonance. You measure progress not in metrics, but in how stable your field remains under pressure. How quickly you return to coherence. How often you move from inner truth rather than outer conditioning. This is the mark of a field explorer. Not how much they know, but how fully they embody their frequency. And there's more. As you stabilize your own field, you become a catalyst for others. You don't have to teach. You don't have to convince. Your very presence shifts the environment. You radiate coherence. Others feel it, even if they don't understand it. And it gives them permission to stabilize too. You begin to lead without trying. You uplift without effort. You heal without words. Not because you're special, but because you've stopped being a source of distortion. You've returned to your natural resonance. And that resonance transmits. It also protects. The more stable your field, the less reactive you become. You're no longer thrown off course by fear, judgment, or manipulation. Your coherence repels noise. You respond rather than react. You move with intention, not impulse. This is not detachment. It is sovereignty. And with sovereignty comes one of the greatest powers of all, choice. Not just choosing actions. Choosing frequencies. Choosing who you want to be, regardless of circumstance. Choosing which timeline to align with. Choosing which version of reality you'll stabilize with your presence. Because as a field explorer, you know this is real. Timelines are not distant possibilities. They're vibrational options. They exist now. And the field responds not to hope, but to your identity. So you don't wait for conditions to change. You become the change. Not in words, in structure. And what does this look like? Practically, it looks like waking up and aligning your energy before aligning your schedule. It looks like choosing stillness over speed when things feel chaotic. It looks like breathing through discomfort, not escaping it. It looks like trusting your inner pull, even when the outer world says no. It looks like honoring your boundaries, your creativity, your sensitivity, not as flaws, but as tuning instruments for reality. And over time, it looks like living in a different reality altogether. One that flows with support, synchronicity, and guidance. Not because the world changed, but because your field changed and the world followed. This is the frontier beyond knowledge, the realm beyond technique, where you no longer just study the field, you become one with it. And once you cross that threshold, you're not waiting for life to happen. You are living as a dynamic expression of the field itself. You are no longer the seeker. You are the signal. Not a drop in the ocean, but the ocean in a drop. This is where the path of quantum understanding has brought you. Beyond particles, beyond time, beyond thought, into vibration, into coherence, into awareness, into the field. You are already in it. You always have been. Now you're finally aware of it. You've been taught to see yourself as a body, a biological machine, a container of thoughts, memories, and personality traits, moving through a world made of solid objects and fixed laws. But this perception is incomplete. And now it's time to go beyond it. Because you are not just a body. You are not just a mind. You are not even a you in the way you've been conditioned to believe. You are a field, an energetic pattern, a conscious waveform, a node of awareness in an intelligent sea of vibrating information. And once you begin to experience life from that truth, everything changes. This is the beginning of field exploration. Not through study, but through being. Being a field explorer means releasing the false sense of solidity that defines your limits. It means recognizing that the boundaries you've drawn around self are conceptual. Mental scaffolding. Useful at times, but ultimately artificial. The truth is, you extend far beyond your skin. Your electromagnetic field, your emotional resonance, your thought patterns, all interact with the world around you constantly. Not symbolically, not spiritually, literally. Every action you take, every breath you draw, every feeling you embody alters your field, and therefore the space you're in. When you stop identifying as just a physical form, you realize that you are in constant relationship with the quantum structure of reality. You stop being a passive observer. You become an active participant, shaping, sensing, adjusting, flowing. You become responsive to patterns, not just events. You begin to see reality not as a linear chain of causes and effects, but as a fluid matrix of probabilities, potentials, and interactions. Some are visible, some are not, but all are felt. As a field explorer, you learn to trust that felt sense, to read vibration, to navigate using more than logic. This isn't fantasy, it's function. The more aware you become of your own field, the more sensitive you become to others. You walk into a room and sense energy shifts. You interact with people and feel coherence or distortion. You enter new situations and pick up on timelines, choices, outcomes without needing to analyze them. This is not mystical intuition. It is the intelligence of a field system coming online. And it doesn't mean you always know what to do, but it does mean you know how to tune in. That knowing alone changes how you make decisions, how you relate, how you live. Living as a field means stepping out of force and into resonance. You stop trying to control reality. You start harmonizing with it. You learn that the path of least resistance is not weakness. It's the current of coherence. You listen for what feels aligned. You wait for the field to respond. You act not from reaction, but from resonance. This is how nature operates. A tree doesn't strive to grow. It aligns with the field. Water doesn't force its path. It follows gravity, structure, vibration. As a field explorer, you return to this same organic intelligence. You stop separating yourself from life. You become part of its rhythm again. And as you do, something unexpected happens. You stop needing external validation. You stop looking for certainty in outcomes. because you begin to trust the feedback of the field. You feel when something is aligned, even if it doesn't make sense yet. You sense when a choice carries expansion, even if it looks irrational. You live not from calculation, but from energetic literacy. This doesn't mean abandoning thinking. It means placing thought in its rightful place as a tool, not a master. Your body, your breath, your emotion, your awareness, they all become instruments of perception. And when they harmonize, your decisions come from a deeper wisdom. Living this way also changes your goals. You stop chasing fixed achievements. You start aiming for states of being. You realize that the deeper goal was never the object, but the feeling you believed the object would bring. And when you embody that frequency now, without waiting, the outer reality reorganizes. You are not abandoning ambition. You are aligning it with reality's architecture. Success becomes not accumulation, but resonance. You measure progress not in metrics, but in how stable your field remains under pressure. How quickly you return to coherence. How often you move from inner truth rather than outer conditioning. This is the mark of a field explorer. Not how much they know, but how fully they embody their frequency. And there's more. As you stabilize your own field, you become a catalyst for others. You don't have to teach. You don't have to convince. Your very presence shifts the environment. You radiate coherence. Others feel it, even if they don't understand it. And it gives them permission to stabilize too. You begin to lead without trying. You uplift without effort. You heal without words. Not because you're special, but because you've stopped being a source of distortion. You've returned to your natural resonance. And that resonance transmits. It also protects. The more stable your field, the less reactive you become. You're no longer thrown off course by fear, judgment, or manipulation. Your coherence repels noise. You respond rather than react. You move with intention, not impulse. This is not detachment. It is sovereignty. And with sovereignty comes one of the greatest powers of all, choice. Not just choosing actions. Choosing frequencies. Choosing who you want to be, regardless of circumstance. Choosing which timeline to align with. Choosing which version of reality you'll stabilize with your presence. Because as a field explorer, you know this is real. Timelines are not distant possibilities. They're vibrational options. They exist now. And the field responds not to hope, but to your identity. So you don't wait for conditions to change. You become the change. Not in words, in structure. And what does this look like? Practically, it looks like waking up and aligning your energy before aligning your schedule. It looks like choosing stillness over speed when things feel chaotic. It looks like breathing through discomfort, not escaping it. It looks like trusting your inner pull, even when the outer world says no. It looks like honoring your boundaries, your creativity, your sensitivity, not as flaws, but as tuning instruments for reality. And over time, it looks like living in a different reality altogether. One that flows with support, synchronicity, and guidance. Not because the world changed, but because your field changed and the world followed. This is the frontier beyond knowledge. The realm beyond technique. Where you no longer just study the field, you become one with it. And once you cross that threshold, you're not waiting for life to happen. You are living as a dynamic expression of the field itself. You are no longer the seeker. You are the signal. Not a drop in the ocean, but the ocean in a drop. This is where the path of quantum understanding has brought you. Beyond particles, beyond time, beyond thought, into vibration, into coherence, into awareness, into the field. You are already in it. You always have been. Now you're finally aware of it.